Change, 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 I said, and eventually the cashier woke up and sorted it out. What's happening over here? Oh. Change, change. Tzeentch has cursed us. Miracle dice changes, detachment rule changes, core rules changes, and a lot of things happening to other factions to benefit them. But this video is the Adepta Sororitas. Yes, I do appreciate comments on, have you seen what's happening to the Genestealer cult? I will get to them soon, but fans of my assortment of factions should find it easy to have dedicated videos. Sisters I feel the mostness about right now. Changes to the rules are annoying if you just got a handle on the game, and if you don't like big changes to your game, I can recommend the old world. But 40k will see even more and even bigger changes in 2025. No longer will every 3 months be points changes and every 6 months are rule changes. We saw that they weren't really sticking to that in October when lots of FAQ changes came out that altered the rules. But in 2025, apparently due to community request, every 3 months, there will be a change to the Munitorum Field Manual for points, the army rules, unit datasheets, detachment rules, FAQs, and erratas and core rules can and will change. For some people, this is a happy time. In theory, things get more balanced more quickly. Others are dreading that, well, it didn't work like that last week, will become a common mantra at gaming tables. Already at my local club, loads of people have dropped 40k because it is too hard to keep up with. I only just caught up with the last set of changes on rules and figuring out what surge moves are, because surge moves are limited to once per phase and don't need to have surge in the name like Brood Surge and Blood Surge. You can't have a Space Marine Lieutenant with combi weapon make a reactive move on their datasheet and then also use the Gladius Detachment reactive move. But now there's a load more changes for everyone. I'm going to cover a lot of things. I would like you to comment as we go, but please add a timestamp, which is just typing the minutes and seconds we are currently through the video, so that I know how far through you are, which will help me understand when it comes to replying. Detachment changes first. I hate to say it, but I think for a lot of reasons, the Bringers of Flame is not going to be a top pick for detachment. I will have ongoing advice throughout this video on which is a better detachment to go for and why. Win rates will fall. It will affect our ability to fight competitive armies from other factions. Games Workshop didn't like that the Bringers of Flame was so good, and allegedly for internal balance reasons, they have been toned down. I had grown out of Bringers of Flame. Too shooty for my taste, not enough stabbing of heretics. Bringers of Flame is not dead, just tired. It is not girl bossing, it is girl lying down on the floor for a bit. There is still a lot of power, but less than we have been used to. The Bringers of Flame detachment rule has been changed. You still have assault on everything, but you only get +1 strength if you are within 6 inches of an opponent, not within 12 inches. This is worse than the Firestorm assault detachment for the Space Marines. Seraphim can no longer drop in with strength 5 hand flamers. This is going to encourage your sisters to get even closer, and you wanted to be within 6 inches for melter range. To get closer, you use transports. The Bringers of Flame is ostensibly a transport detachment. Half of the stratagems are for transports, but the transport stratagems just got worse. Situation does indeed be crazy. Blazing Ire is now 2 command points. It was a full round of bonus shooting, and you got to disembark at the same time, leaving you free to move and shoot and charge and whatever you wanted in your coming turn. It is better than the Hallowed Martyrs Praise the Fallen, as you are at full strength when using Blazing Ire, and both of them are better than Overwatch because you get to fire at full ballistic skill. If you like reactive shooting, the Hallowed Martyrs detachment is a nice alternative. You can do Praise the Fallen, and separately, perhaps beforehand, use Overwatch on the same unit. Enemy moves close, you Overwatch. Enemy shoots you, you take some casualties, you Praise the Fallen. The enemy does not like it when you do that. The Rites of Fire stratagem that lets you disembark and then shoot an enemy on an objective has been reduced to have a 6-inch range maximum. So it's no longer great for using it with Retributors at slightly longer range, or keeping your units at 12-inch range when you get the Bringers of Flame bonus. It is very much saying, yeah, you are Bringers of Flame. Bringers of Flame is now 6 inches, get within 6 inches to get the bonuses. You want to use it on Dominions so that they're close range with the bonus strength, with the bonus to wound, and the bonus melter damage are going to be able to destroy enemies. And if you are within 6 inches, then you're more likely to be on the objective and the enemy is dead. It is a good stratagem, especially when the Dominions can reactive move back into the transport in the enemy's turn. Next turn, they could get out and do such a thing again, but I'd only use this like once per battle. But I also liked Infantry Horde Bringers of Flame. Transport's optional. The transport stratagems are not the only ones to change. The Cleansing Flame stratagem has gone up to 2 command points. That is fair. It brings it in line with the Firestorm Assault Force for the Space Marines. It was a gripe of theirs that, how come you get the same thing as us, but cheaper? Well, now we can say, how come you have the same detachment rule as us, but with longer range? The use of the Cleansing Flame stratagem is going to become more limited. No longer, oh yeah, I've got Dominions with Flamers, let's go. Now we may only see it being used on the Massive Seraphim with a Jump Cannoness who has a Hand Flamer of her own, who will be able to reduce this 2 command point stratagem back to 1 command point. 9 Hand Flamers with devastating wounds is very good, and there is still no cap on the number of mortal wounds you can cause. Who doesn't love 63 devastating wounds? That seems fair. That is the offensive side of this detachment. The defensive side is also worse. Shield of Aversion. Any ability that reduces armor penetration, usually Armor of Contempt, no longer lasts for the phase. It works against 1 enemy unit's attacks. As soon as you have 2 enemy units attacking you, well, the first one, you can reduce the armor penetration. The second one, no armor penetration resistance. So the Army of Faith with Blinding Radiance is looking better. -1 to hit, very upsetting for Horde armies who tend to have a low ballistic skill and weapon skill. It lasts all phase, and it can be an aura from a Seraphim or Zephyrim unit, a jump pack unit, and that will then affect more of your army. You can have your entire army covered by -1 to hit. My oh my. That is still useful. So with 4 out of 6 of the stratagems worse, and the detachment ability worse, we're still going to see Bringers of Flame. We need those Strength 10 melter weapons, so the Bringers of Flame will still be a popular choice. The Battle Sisters like to get close to the enemy and then shoot them lots. It's just that the range to get there is shorter. You can get there. The whole army will have assault. Move and advance. Don't bother with the combat units. This is a shooting detachment for shooting units. And already we have better strength flamers than other factions, which means that you could go outside the Bringers of Flame, but our bolt weapons really fall short, especially considering the new Deathwatch bolters. Outside of the Bringers of Flame, we do have good detachment news. The Penitent Host detachment rule has been fixed. It is a choice of when you use each of the 3 vows. You no longer have to use one in the first battle round, use another one in the second battle round, and use a different one in the third battle round. Each of the 3 vows can be used once per game. You choose which battle round they are active in. This matches things like the Gladius Task Force and the Black Spear mission tactics. This is a contradiction to the FAQ 3 months ago that said you must do something in the first, second, and third battle round. That was trying to go with, yeah, it could be a mistake when we made the Adepta Sororitas Codex. The FAQ was like, you do rules as written. This is now, oh yeah, rules as intended. It's the same as everyone else. Good. Good improvement. So as a Penitent Host player, you can choose to wait and have good things later in the game and not run screaming at the enemy right away while you had working rules. I'm not saying you shouldn't run screaming at the enemy, but now you can more sensibly delay the time in which you run screaming towards the enemy. You're just going to want a miracle dice of a 6 to make sure that charge works. Ah yes, the miracle dice. Apparently, we had too many. But this is an expected change. We knew it was coming, and this is the simplest version. You gain a miracle dice once per battle round at the start of the battle round. not at the start of each player's turn. So we're going right back to how Miracle Dice were in 8th edition. I know that there will be some surprised players who weren't aware that it was every player's turn and had only been generating one at the start of their own turn, once per battle round. Say hi in the comments, no shame, if anything, you were just ahead of everyone else. So now that it is at the start of each battle round, we still have one at the start of the game, but fewer Miracle Dice overall. If you have the Triumph of St. Catherine, you used to gain an additional Miracle Dice of a 6 at the start of each battle round. The rule is changed, you now alter the Miracle Dice you gain at the start of the battle round into a 6. So you have 1 Miracle Dice fewer than before, but we are still getting the 6. That is very necessary for the Penitent Host to complete charges and get into combat. Another way of generating Miracle Dice is getting worse as well. We used to generate a Miracle Dice for every Adepta Sororitas unit that was destroyed. Now you get one at the end of the phase for any number of Adepta Sororitas units destroyed that phase. So if you lose 4 units in one combat phase, 1 Miracle Dice. Very painful turns from combat armies just got more damaging to our ability to recover. And the sisters won't scale up as well in larger games. 1,000 points of sisters operates better than 2,000 points. Proportionally, you should lose parts of your army slower in 1,000 point games. I didn't say it was impossible to lose half your army in one phase at 1,000 points. This isn't a challenge to prove you can, but you don't lose as many units per phase. The drawback with smaller games, there are less units on the board for you to lose, so you won't have as many Miracle Dice to funnel into the really good units. Like Morwen Val and Paragon Warsuits, like an Exorcist, units like that. The Imagifiers rule has been updated in line with this. In the Sisters FAQ it says, if 1 or more units died within 12 inches of the Imagifier, you can reroll the Miracle Dice. You're not having to select the first unit that died and either that does get a Miracle Dice that you can reroll or not. As long as one of the units that died that phase was within 12 inches of an Imagifier, you get to reroll the Miracle Dice you gained. It's less valuable for that aspect of bigger games, and I still prefer the Hospitaller for protection and resurrection of models. A Hospitaller with a 5+ Feel No Pain and bringing back sisters means your army is a lot stronger at 1,000 points. At 2,000 points, a large area covered by an Imagifier meant you got lots of better Miracle Dice. If there are fewer good Miracle Dice available, it's kind of a toss-up. Do you want to drop the Imagifier because you will be getting fewer good Miracle Dice, or do you keep the Imagifier, not just for the invulnerable save and the better armor save, but to try and make sure that at least that Miracle Dice you get from your units dying is going to be a good one? Pending rerolls. I find that bad luck comes in pairs. If I roll a bad Miracle Dice, I will reroll another bad Miracle Dice. If I get a good Miracle Dice, well, I don't need the Imagifier. But that's just how my luck has worked. So with this change to Miracle Dice, how does this affect the Miracle Dice Detachment, the Army of Faith? Has it become more viable? You need more Miracle Dice to have your army function. You get more Miracle Dice from the Army of Faith enhancements and stratagems. But the Army of Faith is also a very Miracle Dice hungry army. If you want to utilize the detachment rule at all of 2 Miracle Dice per unit per phase, you need the Miracle Dice in the first place. Quantity was what you used to get good results from this detachment. We have lost the quantity aspect of Miracle Dice. The Hallowed Martyrs doesn't require as many Miracle Dice to function, and it has several enhancements to give you more Miracle Dice. Okay. This will of course have an impact on the points. If the Imagifier is less useful, well, maybe we can drop them because a Miracle Dice, even a bad Miracle Dice, is still usable on a Hospitaller or a Palatine. So we can look at the Munitorum Field Manual that has the points. Finally, the document is showing the points changes in brackets. It only took several years. Oh, look how fast Games Workshop is. Actually don't, it can be a lot of days for things to happen. Even longer than the NHS waiting list for me to find out why I enjoy that number going up so much when you Adepta Sororitas players click subscribe. I'm aiming for 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Don't let a sister down. So with all these changes, all of these things to the detachment, the army rule, the units, they're making sisters worse. So we're expecting points drops, right? Nope, not happening. There's no green there. The points went up. and they went up on my beloved Exorcist. Again. And the Castigator too. Games Workshop really doesn't like indirect fire, so they just keep putting the points up, and eventually it'll either be so good that you just always have them, or it'll be so many points that you don't have any of them. I know that in a lot of casual games, an Exorcist or two was nice, but not the best. At a very high competitive level, we were seeing lots of army lists with 3 Exorcists still firing away, blowing up the enemy, and because of their random damage, you can use miracle dice on them. Points going up was not what we wanted. For the Castigator, it's more justified. It's a very strong battle tank. That extra point of armor penetration will be more valuable now, as there has been that change to common armor of contempt stratagems. They will only work against 1 unit. So you hit a Chaos Space Marine unit with the Castigator. The enemy users unflailingly obdurate. They ignore the armor penetration of -1 on the heavy bolters and reduce the cannon's armor penetration to nothing. But with the Castigator special rule, we add a point of armor penetration that will work on all of the other units attacking that same Chaos Space Marine unit, because unflailingly obdurate, armor of contempt, only works on 1 enemy unit. I am not expecting big changes to Battle Sister army lists. The Repentia are not down in points, which means that they are still not going to be used outside the Penitent Host detachment. Retributors are still not down in points, and while the Space Marines have got loads of bonuses, their units are cheaper than our units, which isn't okay. Retributors are too expensive, and unless you can wield them really well and get their points back in one go from an amazing shot against the enemy's best unit, they're not worth it. I thought maybe the points would go up on Astrid and Agatha after the Devastating Wound stratagem in the Bringers of Flame went up to 2 command points. With that in mind, Astrid and Agatha is an option to get Devastating Wounds. It is on all weapons, not just shooting weapons, not just melee weapons, not just torrent weapons, all of the weapons. With a cheeky bit of miracle dice manipulation from a Dialogus who can be in the same unit as Astrid and Agatha, you can make sure that that multi-melter in your Battle Sister squad rolls a 6 to wound, and there you have D6 plus some Devastating Wounds. We still have Devastating Wounds as an option. The Triumph of St. Catherine will probably stay in the same state. Some people need the Triumph in their lists to work, other people dropped it completely from all but like the Penitent Host when we had the last points update in October 2024. The Triumph is worse now, but has had no points drop even after the battering it took in that October update. So I'm disappointed in the points. There has been no changes to the units in Legends, and I still don't see any Celestians with guns. Another big negative. We have some benefits from changes to the core rules. Yes, Armor of Contempt, which we see on a lot of our opponents, is worse. It's a positive. Stratagems that alter deep strike distance are no longer 3 inches away, they are 6 inches away. This is to finally rein in things like the Hypercrypt Legion of the Necrons. But unless there is a change to the individual unit cards, any data card entries remain the same. So the Tempestus Aquilons have been updated to say their deep strike is 6 inches away. I'm surprised that they haven't been integrated into the index. They should appear in the Imperial Guard Codex. This is not a surprise change. We saw this coming days ago when the Grey Knights and the Thousand Sons had stratagems that specified you are 6 inches away, not 3 inches, which is how all stratagems like that had been in the past. This is good for us because the Sisters have no such ability to drop in 3 inches away, pending a new detachment this December. Oh, and there is a slight change to Overwatch, very slight. It's still done at all the same times, but not at the end of a charge move, only when a charge move is declared. So this stops fights over if you can Overwatch with pistols. The enemy is out of line of sight, the enemy charges you, you declare Overwatch, but you are now in engagement range, so you fire pistols, but can they be used in like an out of phase activation thing? Well, now you can't. Don't worry about it. Seraphim may be slightly worse from that. So what do? We keep on with the faithful. A major change will be that people will leave the Bringers of Flame. I have shown in this video, linked up in the top, you have to click on it to see it, all detachments are viable and have done well. The Bringers of Flame still has a lot of strength to it, strength we need on our guns. Assault on everything is a good reason to use the detachment, that by itself. Being able to get to an objective quickly and still shoot the enemy is great when you need to get to places, kill things, and control objectives to win the game. I expect quite a few people to go back to the Hallowed Martyrs. It is familiar from the index. It is almost the same. Your characters can die, come back in a different phase, and die again, and they may generate multiple miracle dice. Saintly Example is a good enhancement to have, because instead of getting 1 miracle dice, you get D3 plus that 1 miracle dice. So even if the character with Saintly Example was killed at the same time as something else, whichever one you pick, you get a miracle dice from them, and the Saintly Example character gets another D3 miracle dice. And we know from an FAQ that if you are near an Magifier at that time, you can reroll any or all of those newly generated miracle dice to make them better miracle dice. And if you want better miracle dice, and we do, in the Hallowed Martyrs, the Chaplet of Sacrifice lets you re-roll miracle dice. This detachment has much better recovery mechanics. Lots of damage hitting us at once is going to mean we don't actually get lots of miracle dice, so we need something else to cover that. The detachment rule of the Hallowed Martyrs gives you better attacks as long as the entire unit isn't wiped out. We have Divine Intervention to bring back characters that died before we wanted them to. That can be the character with Saintly Example to get even more miracle dice. Every time they die, they generate an extra D3 miracle dice. And Ephriel Stern does really well in this detachment. You have her near a battle sister unit or any of your units, the enemy charges, you can heroically intervene for free, you have precision and fights first, Ephriel Stern could stab the enemy character that's leading their unit, you can use Suffering and Sacrifice so that the enemy attacks now go on the already fought Ephriel Stern, she can die, generate a miracle dice, and then come back with Divine Intervention. It's a wonderfully annoying way to completely blunt an enemy charge. Only available in the Hallowed Martyrs. What if you don't like any of the detachments? Well, we can see what this new detachment that we're getting is, or you could make your own. You could make your own detachment to play with friends. The Grey Knights Warpbane Task Force is a good one for representing sisters, restoring holy ground. You could have the detachment rule focused on Celestian Sacrosancts. It matches their crusading ability. They would love full rerolls to hit to get lethal hits or sustained hits. When you're hitting on a 3+, it is usually worth rerolling the 3s, 4s, and 5s as well as misses to try and get 6s, if you need that ability to trigger. Lethal hits especially. The Penitent Host is a better detachment. It needs cheaper units. You won't be able to throw away little units to try and get lots of miracle dice to make sure you get the charges, but it hasn't got worse. It has only gotten better. And the Army of Faith is a good detachment. You may have to just forget the detachment rule, but the stratagems and the enhancements make it work. So I'll leave you with a video on how to play the Army of Faith. This is not the end for sisters. This is merely a bump on the road of faith. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.